everyone. It's great to have you here. I'm Teresa Youngkin, and I'm passionate about helping healthcare leaders stay ahead of the curve when it comes to new technologies by simplifying these technology concepts into business-oriented language. And so whether you're struggling with data initiatives or just trying to make informed decisions about new technologies you may be considering to bring into your organization, or just dealing with the constant changes in the market, and let me tell you, there are so many. I'm sure that you're feeling it too. We have got you covered. So for those who've joined us in these previous episodes around generative AI, it's great to see you back. And for others, we welcome you, and I'm so glad that you could join. So as soon as I saw the blueprint for the AI Bill of Rights while I was doing research about this week's live, I knew I could leave you with an easy-to-use framework to discuss AI in your organizations. It's very important that we don't be shiny object people, but that we're thinking and speaking about this in our organizations in a way that is coherent, that's relevant, and that actually helps people understand the value add that AI can bring. Just from a change management perspective, this is very scary for a lot of people, thinking that they're going to lose their jobs because of automation. And I talked about this weeks ago about how when we bring in automation into business operations and business operation processes, how jobs change and how the industry changes. So we have to have all of these things at the top of our minds as we're discussing AI within our organizations, because as we know from Deming, right, culture will eat strategy for lunch if we don't frame it in the right way. So let's get started. What is the blueprint for the AI Bill of Rights? Well, it's a document that's produced by the Office of Science and Technology Policy under the President and the Executive Office of the President. So they convened experts from diverse sectors, including the private sector, governmental bodies, international consortia, and they've all contributed to this framework because we know that this is a global issue, not just a US issue. And so as they got together and they discussed it, they did share principles and guidelines to ensure responsible AI deployment and development. Now, it's really important to understand that while, this fast-paced growth in technology and in data science is exciting, it also brings some serious concerns for our society's values. So think about it. Like I referenced before, the tools we use to make our lives easier can sometimes limit our chances, or it can control important resources in our lives. And, this can affect the fairness and equity we expect in our communities. And I'm talking about using AI for things like deciding on whether you're going to award somebody a home loan or not based on some algorithm that you put into your AI. Very important that we understand that it's not just about the small microcosm of the work that we do every day, but it will have an impact on every single facet of our lives. And as leaders of these organizations that are providing these products and services, we need to be aware of this. So I will tell you that just from experience with all other the technologies I've worked on, including standards, the amount of legislation at the federal and the state level will definitely have an effect on how you are going to be using AI in your organization. And you need to be taking into consideration the purpose of use of the technology. I do believe that this legislation, at least what I've been seeing so far, has started to look at the purpose of use of the technology. If you're a health plan, you understand what that means. For those of you that do not, a purpose of use of the technology means that in your policies, procedures, your mission, your strategies, you're saying we're using this technology for this specific purpose. So we have to start thinking about how transparent will you be around that. And I would encourage you to be very transparent. Again, I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So this is really going to be new uncharted territory. So transparency, like I said, in the beginning is going to be very, very important, because your employees, I know, are feeling this angst about using AI and what this is going to look like in the future, because we know a year ago, it's been almost a year since OpenAI kind of opened the doors to ChatGPT. Everybody thought it was really great, but like now that it's proliferating and people are starting to use it, they're really starting to have some concerns. And I'm seeing it echoed in social media channels. We're seeing it starting to be echoed in papers, in our industry associations. So keep it at top of mind. Well, Every successful company knows that you need to have a strategic framework to guide your way, right? Because that strategic framework is like having a GPS that shows your current location, but it helps you also chart out the best routes. It anticipates robot blocks and it recalculates your path if it's necessary. So this AI Bill of Rights, when they published it, they also published a supporting guide, and that was created with those insights from the experts to safeguard against AI threats. So it does promote the ethical use of technology, and it provides a detailed handbook for practical applications. And the link is also in the description here. One of the things that it truly emphasizes is the importance of protecting the public's rights and opportunities in the face of this large-scale automation that's at the helm right now of our technology world. So here is a quick outline if you wanted to create an AI Bill of Rights for your own organization. I think that this is a great way to frame out how you're going to talk about this within your industry. And it's very important that you do talk about it in a way that is coherent, aligned, and knowledge-based, right? We want this to be informative. We want to make sure that we're talking about the value adds that it's going to bring, not necessarily the efficiencies that it's going to bring to remove jobs. You have to think through these. So as with any good written paper, right? You're going to have an introduction. Your introduction should cover the importance of AI and its implications for society and what your role in your organization's role will be in ensuring the responsible use of AI. I would just encourage you to hold off on writing this piece until you've gone through the exercise of understanding exactly what your Bill of Rights is going to say. So how do you get started? You start listening to stakeholders, right? You need to engage with both internal and external stakeholders to gather their perspectives. You're going to collect that feedback on their AI experiences, both positive and negative. And that will help you to start to build out your core principles. So we've got some core principles that were outlined in this AI Bill of Rights. I'm very bullish on this AI Bill of Rights. Why? Because it talks about the core principles that it puts forth, our core principles that we should be thinking about, and that I've been talking about over the course of this summer, about how do we bring AI into our organizations and how do we use AI in our organizations, right? So core principle number one, we need some safe and effective systems. We want to ensure that our AI systems are tested rigorously for safety and effectiveness. We want to make sure that our AI systems have algorithmic fairness. So that means we're going to be implementing measures to prevent biases in our AI systems. And that means regular audits and updated algorithms. I talked about that last week. We want to make sure that we are so in tune on data privacy because we want to safeguard our user data. So we want to implement robust data encryption to ensure transparency in our data collection and usage. So we want to make sure that people consent, and when they consent, they understand what they're consenting to. Transparencies and explanations, right? If you're going to be using AI, those decisions should be transparent and the users should have a right to an explanation. And those that you're generating data from should also have the right to an explanation of how that data is going to be used. Human oversight, and I talked about this last week too. We need to ensure that there are mechanisms for human interventions and the review of these AI decisions. We can't just let it go willy-nilly without having human oversight. You know what is so important? I know that this seems like a very maybe a tedious thing. It's not very sexy, but it's always very important to have some sort of implementation guide. So you want to make sure that your technical and your ethical guidelines are laid out in a way so that people understand how you're going to implement those above core principles. One way to do that, I would encourage you to use some case studies that are going to be highlighting best practices. We talk about proof of concepts. I talked about that earlier in the summer. Starting off with small projects before we go to wide scale. Use those case studies and the benefits that you've derived from that in this. And also, it always helps to kind of lean out to a third party who is like your organization and show what they've also done so that you're not just an island, right? Basic change management there. One other thing that we need to have is we need to have a good feedback mechanism. So I want you to implement some channels for continuous feedback from your users and your stakeholders, and then regularly review and update that Bill of Rights based on your feedback, right? This is a living, breathing document. This is not something that we're going to once and done. Why? Because the technology is changing each and every day. You know, in November it was only ChatGPT. Now we've got Bard, we've got Claude, we've got all these large language models. We've got large language models and AI systems now that are being built internally. So we're not just connecting to outside technologies, but we're starting to build them internally. So this Bill of Rights within your organization is going to be crucial for you. Conclusions. So when you get to the end of all of this, go back and write your introduction and then write the conclusion. I need you to reiterate to your organization their commitment to the responsible use of AI. So, you know what? We need to encourage collaboration and open dialogue on the topic within our organizations. And an AI Bill of Rights is one way for you to do that. It's a great framework. And the reason I brought it to you today, instead of just starting with the regulatory environment at the federal level and at the state level, is that this AI Bill of Rights is the overarching framework for you to work in. It's great. It's been developed. And like I said, having worked in technology as an informaticist and as a educator in the technology world, I've seen the legislation and regulations roll out. They're going to be looking at this AI Bill of Rights framework when they start, because it's coming from the office, right, from the highest office in the land. They're going to be looking at that and kind of building from that piece. So, as I said, it's here for you to use. Please, it'll be posted in just the simple outline will be posted in the description of my talk today. So next week, let's talk about the federal regulations, like the actual legislation that's out there. At the federal level, I can't do all 50 states in the short period of time. So I'm going to pull out some highlights just so that you are aware of what's happening out there and give you a nice link so that you can see what else is out there as well. Provide that to your compliance departments. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Glad to be here. And I will catch you guys here again next week to have more discussions on generative AI. We're getting ready to wrap up this series. I've been doing it all summer long. So thank you again for joining me. And as always, if you just kind of scroll back up or down in my feed, you will find all of the other topics that I've talked about and other suggestions, tools, anything that you need to start that discussion about generative AI in your organization. All right, then, you guys take care and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.